Hi everyone and welcome. Today I have a very fun video planned because I was actually tagged to do the Create Your Own Adventure Fantasy Character tag. This seems like such a fun tag to do, and it's actually the first time that I have been tagged to do a video on BookTube, so I'm very excited to start. I was tagged by Madison, and I will link the video where she does this tag down below. She's a very chatty lady that loves to talk about adult fantasy, so if you're interested in that and are looking for some new recommendations, then definitely give the rest of her channel a look as well. I will also link the video of Joanna down below because she is the original creator of this tag, so definitely give her channel a watch as well. But without further ado, let's start. The idea is that we have 10 prompts. It used to be 9, but Madison actually added a prompt at the end that I really enjoy, and you have to find a fantasy character that fits the prompt. I did have some problems with a few of these tags, so we'll see how I did. I do want to quickly jump in. This is me at the end of the video realizing that I should maybe warn there are going to be very minor spoilers. I don't think that this would affect anyone's reading enjoyment. I wouldn't mind these, I wouldn't really see them as spoilers even, but just be aware that if you don't want to know anything about any of these books, that yes, I will spoil some of the characters and what they do in these books. So be aware of that, but it's very minor. And the first prompt is already one that I had some trouble with finding a character that I could completely relate to, because this prompt is the fantasy twin. So what is a character that you can relate to on a personal level? And to be honest, that's a little bit difficult because most of the time fantasy characters are either persons that I would like to be because they're super badass, or I wouldn't want to be because they're lunatics. So to find somebody who was a little bit in between and then I found fitting to my own character was not that easy, but I think that I found somebody, and that is Fanya from Child of Prophecy by Juliette Merlier. And that's because Fanya is a little bit insecure. She doesn't really believe that she has the power that it takes to complete her task. And for me, I do suffer from anxiety, especially on a professional level, where I get super stressed out and I have trouble sleeping because I think that I'm not fit for the job or I'm not working hard enough. And this is of course something that I've had since I was a child, and I have learned to deal with that a little bit, but it's still present. So that's why I do think that I can relate to Fanya a little bit in that sense. But she is also super jealous, and that's you can see that throughout the book a little bit, especially on a romantic level, and I'm also super jealous when it comes to my partner. Of course, over the years that has decreased a little bit. I've been with my husband for 10 years now, so at this point I am trusting and I can let go, but the jealousy is still there. So on that aspect, me and Fanya also are very relatable. Then the next prompt is hero. So who is a character that you aspire to be like? And there are a lot of characters in the books that I've read that actually done a lot of good things, but in the end I settled for Daenerys from A Song of Ice and Fire. And it has been a while since I read these books, and I do mean book Daenerys, not show Daenerys. So if she's done some horrible things in some of these books, I just don't remember. There is one particular scene or one particular section of these books that make me wanna be like her, and that is that her end goal, of course, is to be on the Iron Throne. And she has suffered a lot of hardship to get there. She's really started from the bottom, first being abused by her brother, and along the way she has gotten more powerful. She's still not in Westeros, but she is getting there. So at a certain point she sees that people from other cities are being ill-treated, they are being kept as slaves and are not treated any better than animals, even worse at that, and she feels pity and sorry for them. Now the masters of this city decide to bribe her and say, well, you need to get to Westeros, that's across the sea, we have ships, we have money, we can give you anything you want, you can just sail there, take the place, and you have what you want. And I think that a lot of people would actually do that. I know that most characters in fantasy do good things, but that's either for people that they actually love, it's good for their own journey, or at least it wouldn't effectively harm their own journey, or there's something in there for them as well. And here, Daenerys actually stopping there and helping these people would effectively harm her own goals, because it would be set back, there's a risk for her as well. She could lose men that are very important for her, her soldiers. She could lose some of her dragons. So all of this is a great risk for her. And in the end, she could just wash her hands clean and say, well, I didn't cause this pain. I'm not, the one who should make all of this right. So I can just walk away with everything that these people gave me and go for my own goal. But she doesn't do that, and she actually helps those people. And I do think that that's something that not a lot of people would do. That's something that I aspire to do, that, I don't only look at my own goals and what I want in life, but also look at others and don't, try not to be that selfish. But that's sometimes very difficult. So I do applaud Daenerys for doing that here and for not making excuses, because I do think that also a lot of characters would be like, well, if I take all of these, riches, I take the ships, then I can become queen of Westeros and then I can do good. So actually by, just letting these people suffer, in the long run, I can help them. But that's nothing more than an excuse. So I do want to be as compassionate as Daenerys is in the books. The next prompt is champion. So who would be the character that you choose to defend you in a duel? And for that I also had some trouble, because most of the time I don't really read about all-powerful beings. Most of the time the main characters that I follow, or the side characters that I follow, are just normal people, maybe with some minor magical abilities, but nothing that can really, stand up against the god or against one of the real bad guys that you often read about. But in the end, I chose a character from the Chronicle of the Unhewn Throne series, and she is especially present in Skullthorn, which is a standalone novella in the same world. I'm not going to say her name because that would be a very minor spoiler, but you also don't really need to know that. What you need to know is that she is a priestess of the god of death. And in this world, if you are a priestess of any god, you enter the monastery or the temple of that god when you are very young, and you train to become a priest. And in the end, you have a trial where people see if you are worthy of becoming a priest or priestess. So in her case, being a priest of the goddess of death means that you have to become a very skilled assassin. And in the end, she isn't afraid to die, because if she dies, that's just another way to worship her god. So she is very skilled in the books, and I think that in the entire book, for somebody who doesn't have magical abilities, she is probably the most powerful in this series. So that's why I do think that she would be able to help me, especially because she's not afraid to die. So she would take a lot of risks in order to protect me. As an assassin, if you hire her, she also sees that as a great honor, and she does want to keep the bargain, because if she doesn't, then again, that's a great insult to her god. So I do think that I would be safe and that she would do anything in her power to help me, and that others wouldn't be able to bribe her. Next up, we have unlikable characters. So what is a character that you really love to hate? And well, Life Ship Traders by Robin Hobb, Captain Kenneth. Kenneth, in the beginning I loved him. He was the villain. It was quite clear that he was the villain, but he was just so enjoyable to read. Kenneth is really the perfect example for a selfish person. Everything he does for his own gain, but while doing so, which is very funny, this is my kind of humor, people actually think that he's some kind of saint. Because he does a lot, for instance, save slaves, that his crewmen think that he is amazing because he's saving these slaves and he cares so much for their future. But in the meantime, he just saved those slaves because he thinks that would help his means. He doesn't really care if they live or die, only that they help him along the way. So he's so ruthless, he's so selfish, and I actually loved that. I loved the dynamic with him being an evil person, and you know that because you're in his mind while you're reading some of the passages in this book. And on the other hand, you see the worship that his crewmates have for him because they think he's some kind of saint. But throughout the story, he does some messed up stuff, and by the end, you really hate him. And I cannot wait to actually reread this series. I normally don't reread series, but in this case, I just want to go back and see how I view Kenneth, knowing everything that I do know now, because I loved him so much, and it really broke my heart when he did some things. I was like, why, Kenneth? Why? You were the one that I was rooting for, and now I can't root for you anymore. So definitely him. Next up, I'm going to talk about my Tavern Body, so a character that I would really like to have a drink with or spend a night in town with, and that is Dandelion in The Witcher. He is a minstrel, bard, poet kind of man, and he is actually the best friend of Geralt of Rivia, so the Witcher. But in the books, he's just so funny. He's also very full of himself. He thinks he's so talented, and he really knows how to party. I also think that he would have some very fun stories about Geralt to tell. So, in general, I think we would have a very fun night out. Then we have a villain, so a character that I would never want to cross paths with. And I've seen Ramsay being mentioned in this category a lot, which is quite obvious. Ramsay is crazy, and well, I would be very scared if I'd seen him, even from a distance. I'd run. But I have a character that's more crazy than Ramsay. He is Ramsay if Ramsay had magical powers. And that's actually a character in, again, the Chronicle of the Unhung Throne trilogy. I'm not going to say who the character is because that would be minor spoilers, but you need to know that this is a character with magical abilities and he can actually draw from people's emotions. So the stronger the emotions around him are, the more magical abilities he has. And he could have chosen to make people laugh, to make people happy, but what he does in the books is he assembles a group of prisoners and then he chooses 3 of them and tortures them as slowly as possible, murders them, and then takes the second person. And he keeps doing that while feeding on their fear and their pain. Now, you would lose from the moment that you see him. Because if you see him and you know who he is, you will be afraid, you will be terrified, and he would be all the more powerful for it. And he will actually torture you as slowly as possible because, again, that would give him power. He wouldn't really grant you a quick death. He would really stretch it out. So he's Ramsay, but unable to defeat. I think with Ramsay, I would have a fair shot. I would probably lose because I'm not really a fighter, but I would have a knife with me and I would at least have the small hope that maybe I can get away here. With this guy, I wouldn't. So this is definitely a villain that I wouldn't want to cross paths with. Next up is, who would you want to have as a mentor? Who would you want to have as someone that needs to teach you some important stuff? And with this one, I immediately thought of somebody that I wouldn't want to have as a mentor, and that is Moraine from Wheel of Time, because she doesn't explain anything to her pupils. She just tells them what they need to do, and when they ask why, she gets annoyed. She tells them that they shouldn't know already, and there's just a sense of distrust, which I wouldn't like. I wouldn't like to be, used for means that I don't even get to know why I'm being used. So I wouldn't want to have her. But for everyone else that I was going over, I think that I really like Kelsier at one hand from Mistborn Era 1, because not only is he very encouraging towards Finn, he really believes in her and in her abilities. He takes some risks with her because he thinks that she can pull through, and I think that that's very important for somebody who's not that trusting in general as Finn is in the beginning of this book. But at the same time, he gives her a family. So I do think that I really like that soft approach that Kelsier sometimes has, even though he does take risks. He's very soft with Finn and with, really encouraging her and telling her that he believes in her and what she can do. But on the other hand, I really like Yennefer from The Witcher again also a lot, because I really like her interaction with Ciri. She is definitely a very strict mentor, a lot stricter than Kelsier. She has a very sharp tongue, but I do like that. I also like when a mentor can just tell me, this is what you need to do, this is why you need to do it, and sometimes you just need to listen to me and do it. And I also like that she didn't only interact with Ciri for magic, just being a simple mentor, but she also saw Ciri as, the child that she could never have. So she also told her what it's like to be a woman and learned her more of those stuff, which I think was also very nice to read about. And I think that Yennefer had so much love for Ciri that I think she was a very good mentor as well. Then the next prompt is name your Samwise. So name a character that you think you can trust or who you would like to have as a best friend. And for this one, I chose Cheda from the Song of the Shattered Sand series. And that's because Cheda actually has a best friend, Emre. They have been childhood friends all along. And at a certain point, they are really at opposite sides. They have chosen different paths, and they are, in a sense, almost each other's enemies. But still, the friendship remains. So they know, okay, we've chosen different paths, we are at opposite sides, and turning each other in would help us immensely in our own goals. But we are still friends, we still have each other's backs, we still care for each other greatly. And that, to me, shows that there is definitely a trust there that I really enjoyed reading about as well. But I do think that both Cheda and Emery would be great friends that really have a lot to give and would help you in any situation, even if it's not in their best interest. Then the next trope is found family. So name a character that you would like to adopt or find a home for. And Fitz is mentioned a lot here, and of course Fitz from the Farseer trilogy, because he's a very young boy in the beginning when he is left behind by the family of his mother. So he's been living with his mother from birth until he's 6 years old, and then all of a sudden she abandons him and he needs to live with the family of his father, who doesn't really love him. They just want to use them for their own gain. And for a very young boy, that's so traumatizing that of course you want to give him a home. But there's actually another character that I chose for this trope, and that is Noon, the Fell Witch from The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. She is a Fell Witch, so she has these magical abilities, but she's actually being used and held prison by people who can use this to make substances and sell this for a lot of money. But before this happened, she actually had an accident that she has a lot of grief and guilt over. So she's being held prisoner. She's still pretty young, and I think that she was even younger when she was held as a captive. And she has all this guilt and nobody there to comfort her because she is being kept a prisoner. She's very alone and lonely in general. And all the while she's thinking that everything that she's undergoing is her own fault and that she deserves this kind of punishment. So I would like to give her a home and show her love and show her that not everything is her fault, that sometimes things just happen and it's out of your control and that you shouldn't feel guilty about that, and just give her some love and not let her be lonely anymore. Now, of course, her story might get a little bit better throughout the trilogy, I don't know that, but in the first book I did really feel sorry for her. And then the last prompt, the one that is added by Madison, is animal companions. So name your favorite animal companion that you would like to have yourself. And for this I have chosen Salovey from the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Harden. Salovey is a magical being, but for the majority of the trilogy he takes the form of a horse. And as far as the beings of his kind go, he's actually very young. So he acts like a very young stallion. He's very, just in general very happy, but also overconfident in himself. He really believes that he can do a lot, and he has a very fun relationship with Fasha. He really wants to please her and he wants to show her everything that he can do. He can also interact with Fasha, which, for an animal companion, they need to be able to interact with me. So I would definitely pick Salovey. So those were all the prompts, and now it's time to tag some people to also do this video. Now, of course, this is no strings attached. If you don't want to do this tag, then don't do it. And if I didn't tag you, but you want to do the tag, then please do. But the two people that I tag are Hugo Reeds and a couple books. I have watched through their videos and I don't think that they have done the video yet. I'm pretty sure that they haven't done a video, but I'm not sure if they have been tagged or not. If you've already been tagged, then ignore me, but if you haven't, then please do the video if you want to. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have done this tag without adding a link, because then YouTube will think it's spam, even though it's a YouTube link. Just let me know if you've done it, then I will go to your channel and have a look. And if you don't want to do the tag, then just let me know what you thought of my picks and what you would have picked instead. I hope you have a nice day and see you later. Bye!